Okay, let's go again. Hello. Today is May 11th, and this is MetaGaming. I am Lamachomp. I am joined by
Lolash. I'm Lolash. Also, apparently I'm losing my voice. Hi, I'm Lolash. There we go. That's better.
I wonder if you're
Hi,
losing your
Llama.
voice because you've been streaming 12 hours a day on your channel and then mine.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm having fun. Live fast, lose your voice young, whatever. Something like that. So this is metagaming. This is where we talk about whatever, and
Yeah.
you guys listen to us because you're sadists and
So turns out that when you put the level of effort and energy into your podcast content that I have been putting in, um, it's hard to have a format and a flow, and it's probably better to just revert to some stream of consciousness instead of trying, but not trying hard enough to do like a produced episodic thing.
yeah, I think so. Our regular viewers, you know who you are probably used to us just like waffling, and honestly, I think waffling is a perfectly acceptable podcast format. Rather
Yeah,
than
I have been I've been a little bit concerned about the quality of this show because I haven't ever quite comprehended. I sort of decided to do this before I knew what I wanted it to be and thought that like we would figure it out by doing it. And then it's kind of settled into a thing, but I've never been quite satisfied with that thing. And then I watched some podcasts, and it's really just some people hanging out with each other and bantering and occasionally touching on a topic. And then I was like, oh no, that's okay. That's what we do. And I had a fine time watching that. And hopefully people are having the same fine time watching me do that.
yeah, I think we'll just waffle. Apparently, you sound like you're underwater.
Yeah, I am bad at sound engineering. And I am also bad at evaluating the sound. Like I if I listen to it on a monitor, I can't hear it clearly because I have to be talking while I'm listening. And then so I try to do a recording and I listen back to the recording, and it's not an easy process for me to tweak these settings. And maybe I should just let it be unfiltered mic and stop tweaking them.
I I don't think there was any issue with unfiltered mic. I don't use any kind of fancy filters. Mostly because I'm super lazy. And if I was going to do it, I think I'd do it with like hardware rather than
Yeah.
software, because software is.
I mean I'm trying to polish up my professionalism, and get a more studio sound, and apparently I've done an awful job of it and I sound even more amateur. Or, I mean, it's also possible that all the comments are because people have gotten very used to my previous sound, and it's not that the new sound is actively bad, it's just different, and so it's jarring.
You
But
know,
I can't hear it, so I can't make the judgment.
we could. We do have identical mics. Um, we could. There's a way we could test the difference between like you without a filter and you with a filter at the same time. I could put up my stream and you could talk on both streams. And like, well, like next time when we play Solaris, I can just, because you can put the unfiltered sound through Discord
Yeah.
and the filtered sound through your own stream. And then people can have both of our streams up and they can hear you on both of the streams. And then they can provide honest feedback about what they think sounds better.
Yeah.
And like easily toggle back and forth.
I have tweaked I don't even know what it's called. The whatever microphone effect. I've turned it way down.
We should
So
both sing.
hopefully it's not super obnoxious. Part of the echo is my studio is like a hardwood floor and 3 painted walls, and I hung curtains in the fourth space to try and absorb some of the reverb, but they are not doing a good job, and I need to sort that out also.
Yeah, get some of those foam tiles.
Yeah.
They're pretty easy to put up, and they'll do wonders for you. I don't have to worry about it so much because of the space that I record in. I don't get a huge amount of reverb, which is good. So
So I originally painted all my walls to use
Mhm.
as the green screen. And that is a hard surface. And I might thumbtack green screen cloth over some of the green screen paint just to absorb sound. um, but I wanted to have a lot of green space so I could do other things, like I used to dance on a dance pad before it started glitching out. Um, and maybe I don't need all that green screen space, and I'd be fine with just a hanging cloth. And then I could jam um, foam panels everywhere else.
yeah. Oh, there's some really interesting things happening in chat. Llama, what have you been playing these last couple of weeks since our last metagaming? What's been happening on Llama Chomp's channel?
The same stuff that I like. I mean, I was joking earlier when we were preparing for this show over the past 2 weeks, made the joke repeatedly in that time span, that
Yeah.
about every fourth metagaming is either Stellaris had a patch, or Factorio had a patch, or RimWorld had a patch, and that this episode's going to be all three. Because I played the Factorio .15 patch, and I played the Stellaris 1.5 and 1.6 patch.
And we played I've played the RimWorld's 0.17 development builds. So yeah. There's been other things we've played as well, right? Like you check out a couple other things?
I mean, I occasionally, and then I forget to. I should keep it. I should keep a log of things. It would be so easy for me to just have a note card where, if a developer sent me a key, I could write down the name of the game when I play it on stream, so that I remember it for metagaming.
Mm-hmm.
I played Expeditions Vikings, which apparently is the second game in the Expeditions. It's a successor to Expeditions Conquistadors, which I had never even heard of. But Vikings came across my radar, and I got a key to check that out. I think there's been something else since the last episode, but I forget.
I am trying to think about what else you've played.
There's been
a lot of.
I turned on Heroes of the Storm last night off stream. Well, on Pounce's stream, he was playing, and I had some time, some time in between. I was making puff pastry, which is a lot of downtime while you wait for it to chill, and so I sat and Heroes of the Storm with Pounce, and that was pretty fun.
Never played Heroes of the Storm, or like I'm a Blizzard fanboy. I enjoy Diablo. I'm really looking forward to the Necromancer class that's coming out for D3, and I played a lot of StarCraft when I was younger and stuff. But I've never played Heroes of the Storm, and I've never played Overwatch. So
I mean, neither of them are really my genre. They're not. I'm not into first-person shooters, and I'm definitely not into competitive ones. I also find the overhead. I think I enjoy the MOBA genre. I don't love that name for it, but there isn't a better one. I think I enjoy that genre abstractly, but the specific entries in this space have violently toxic communities, and the act of actively ignoring trolls is taxing. And they have incredibly deep, complicated systems that I don't want to spend the mental energy to stay updated on. So I've never been able to get into League of Legends or Dota.
Yeah, I'm a League player. I really enjoy League.
Yeah, I think it's a good game, and I enjoyed it when I felt like I had time to keep up on it.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like I want to spend the mental energy to stay updated on all of the new heroes coming out all the time, the meta game, the item builds, like all of that is a lot of information to occupy your conscious mind, and I don't want to invest in it. But Heroes of the Storm is way more, and I know this is like a derogatory term, and I don't mean it derogatorily. Heroes of the Storm is way more casual, which is so great because I can drop in once every 3 weeks and play a couple of games and have a decent time, and it's okay. And I just pick talents instead of like worrying about saving up gold and buying items. Like it's so streamlined that you can just kind of have fun kicking around, and it's all right.
All right. Yeah. No, I don't know. Heroes of the Storm just never grabbed me. I don't know why, but I just don't see.
I think if you enjoy League, that it might be hard to move to Heroes of the Storm because it is more casual. And
Yeah.
if you enjoy League because it presses the skill requirement buttons and you enjoy that, you don't want to spread yourself out and try and like grind unlocks in two MOBAs. And I could see that if you like League, that Heroes of the Storm wouldn't be your jam.
Yeah, I think that's probably it. So we've been playing a lot together, actually. I mean, we've been playing some For the King, we've been playing Stellaris together, we've been playing Factorio together.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the patches and what they did, because there's been some big moves.
That's really like the theme of this episode is probably going to be patch notes.
Yeah, we're just going to talk about the patches in all of the games.
I don't think we need to talk a lot about For the King, so let's just hammer out our complaints about multiplayer are starting to get fixed in the recent patches.
Yeah,
a lot of the quality of life stuff that we wanted is in now.
Yeah, and we learned a thing. We think we learned a thing. Somebody in chat posited a theory that the rubbish in the game was actually like a real drop that should have been a real drop, but didn't drop because you hadn't unlocked it in the lore store.
Yeah.
So have a think about that, because that could be a thing.
But
I've really been enjoying that game.
There's a problem with unlocks in unlocking drops that Crypt of the Necrodancer solves by letting you delete old stuff so it can't drop anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you unlock something that's kind of bad, it's a reversal, right? Your game gets worse if a bad item drops. And if you're dropping rubbish and that rubbish transforms into the item, that's another way to solve that problem.
Yeah. Yes,
which is interesting. So that game is still fun. Watch last week's episode. We talked about it a little bit more.
Yep. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, Stellaris, because that's the thing that we're multiplaying most at the moment, but we've had to stop because somebody at QA at Paradox dropped the ball. My God. So if you haven't heard yet, we've been playing Stellaris 1.6, the new patch, which was supposed to bring a bunch of bug fixes and balance changes. And from what we managed to see, it looked pretty cool. I was enjoying what I'd seen from it.
Had some good quality of life stuff, had some good balance fixes.
Yeah, but AI Empires.
And one major balance unfix.
AI Empires cannot declare wars in Stellaris 1.6. So if you're planning on playing Stellaris, or you're playing it right now and you're thinking, man, this galaxy is really peaceful, it's because the AI can't declare wars. So just be wary of that. They're working on a hot fix, and that'll land hopefully tomorrow. So hopefully we'll be back with some more Stellaris.
I mean, ideally today.
Yeah.
Right, they said Thursday or Friday. And if it lands today, then we can boot Stellaris up at the beginning of the stream tomorrow. If it lands tomorrow, post the beginning of the stream, that's tougher. But Stellaris in general is it is still good for all the reasons it used to be good. Which to me, bizarrely, is role play. And it's still weird, and I think I've said all this before. This feels very familiar. I think we had a metagaming back when Stellaris came out a year ago that had roughly this same sentiment. It's weird to me to role play an empire instead of an individual. And I don't get that feel from Crusader Kings. That I'm role playing an empire, that I have a lot of choices for how I behave. But Stellaris really opens up great empire level storytelling, and you have these hilarious moments. And I like the storytelling in that game. It is a lot of fun. I I probably still have some complaints about the strategic and tactical level gameplay when it comes to combat. It's not very rich, but the story gets me through it. I just have fun being, the recent patches added a hive mind style empire, and that has been a really rich source of laughter and role play for me. As nomads swing by and drop some people off to live on my planets, but I'm a hive mind, so we eat them. Those moments are so good. The stories of things that happen in that game are so wild that you wouldn't think that you could program that into a video game.
Yeah. Speaking of, I mean, so I think that pretty much covers Stellaris. It's a great game, and we've been having a lot of fun with it, but we can't play it until they fix it. But speaking of really interesting stories, let me tell you about a little colonist named Elfire. Because this is another game with amazing emergent storytelling, which has just gotten it's got a development build out for an upcoming patch, which should drop soon. TM. That's RimWorld, right? Obviously, I'm talking about RimWorld. I had a colonist. You have caught like very brief glimpses of me playing RimWorld recently, but I want to tell this story. I want to tell the story of the glorious Elfire, who was a member of Lashrock Mountain, which was a thriving little colony.
Lashrock Mountain, that's the one where you ride in the log boat and you go down the hill and a bunch of water sprays in your face?
No, that's the one where you go underneath it and end up fighting Ragnaros the Fire Lord.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was mixing up Lash with Splash.
Yeah. So Elfire ended up getting shot in the brain very early on in my game of RimWorld, and you're presented with three choices when something like that happens. The first option is leave them be. Let them muddle their way through life with half a brain. And I always feel bad, right? That a poor person has lost a great deal of their mental capacity. And Elfire did that for a little while, and then we had a raider show up. And that raider was carrying a little red powder called Luciferium. And chat egged me on.
Yeah.
Can you give the Luciferium? And then somebody in chat told me that Luciferium will heal a brain injury as long as the brain's not completely destroyed. I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. So I gave her the Luciferium, and about 3 months later, her brain regenerated. I thought that was pretty cool. So Elfire became a functioning member of the colony again. Everything was going quite well for her until she was shot through the spine by a scyther. Now, her spine was completely shattered, leaving her a paraplegic.
Yeah.
And Luciferium doesn't heal a body part if it's completely destroyed, only if it's damaged. So poor Elfire was now a Luciferium addict. She had to take her dose of Luciferium every 5 days, or the nanites would break down, and she would go berserk and thrash around in her bed because she was a paraplegic, and then eventually die. And she couldn't move. She was a paraplegic. And those moments in a game where you have this paraplegic colonist who is addicted to Luciferium, which costs you like 100 and something silver every 5 days, and she's literally just lying in bed, eating meals and consuming Luciferium and doing nothing for the colony. Do you know how painful it is to, like, the number of times I would hover over the euthanize button and be like, she's literally just a drain on the colony. Nothing can ever fix her. but I couldn't do it. I could not do it. I could not euthanize Elfhire.
You failed the Kobayashi Maru.
I couldn't break it. Couldn't break it. So you haven't played Alpha 17 yet, have you, Lyle?
I have not played Alpha 17.
And you'll probably wait for the full release, yeah?
I am going to wait until there's a gap in my schedule. So I don't know if that's going to be Alpha 17 or Alpha 18. I have this problem where, and this is maybe a complaint about the early access system in general, where a game comes out and it's not released yet, and I am done with it before it ever is finished. And it's too bad because I'm sure RimWorld 1.0, 10 years in the future, will be a great game. I'm sure the same thing is true of Factorio. But I'm kind of done. I've seen what it has to offer, and they're both great. Like, this isn't a criticism, but I have seen what they have to offer. I've explored them, and I want to hunt for new experiences instead of sitting and enjoying that old experience. And I don't know. I like RimWorld, and I think it deserves a lot of coverage, and I think that more people should play it harder. But I don't want to play every single patch until I grind any desire to ever play it again out of my brain.
That's where we differ, I think. I do get sick of RimWorld, mostly because when you're streaming 5 or 6 hours of it a day and then sneakily playing a bunch of it off stream as well, you tend to burn out fairly quickly on a game like that because it's a little hands off. But it's actually something interesting to talk about. We can talk about it now, I guess, with the like, how does a game like XCOM 2, how does that differ so violently from a game like RimWorld?
I wish I knew. I wish I could tell you. Because if I could understand that, I feel like I would have gained insight into human psychology, or at least my own psychology. Because there's something, I characterize myself, I describe myself as an explorer. That's my, my reason I enjoy games is I enjoy exploring the systems that other people have designed. I don't enjoy exploring the maps they made. That's not what I mean by explorer. But I enjoy exploring game mechanics, and I enjoy exploring tech trees, and I enjoy solving puzzles. And so that's why I burn out on Factorio, is I play through all of the tech tree in Factorio, and then I don't care anymore. I don't want to expand my base to be a mega base because I've already designed all of making all the things in the tech tree. Like I've explored it, and my motivation has lapsed. And I have the same thing with RimWorld. When they release new features, I want to watch how those new features interact with the storytelling, and I want to experience some of. I mean, RimWorld is a masterful piece on the sum of the parts and storytelling, and I like to look at it occasionally. But then once I've seen all the new mechanics, I'm kind of done. And the goal of launching my colony off the planet doesn't hold my attention. And I have no idea why XCOM is different. And maybe, like, one possible thing to posit is that I just enjoy the XCOM puzzles. The combat puzzle, for some reason, doesn't get stale. I can do that crossword every morning. And I don't know why. Okay, I've done 1,000 crosswords. I know how to do them. Doesn't ever like kick me out of XCOM.
And it's interesting because, like, the combat in RimWorld is very much a tactical puzzle, and it's getting more so. Like, they're doing a lot of AI tweaks in Alpha 17, which have made the game harder. But like a game like RimWorld, for instance, the events present you with interesting and unique puzzles, and the colonists present you with interesting and unique puzzles constantly.
Yeah.
And they're probably spaced out about as much as XCOM missions are, right? Like you have an event happen every 20 minutes that is really compelling, and then the rest of the time it's just clicking through the motions. And XCOM is very much like that, I
A
think.
major difference is that XCOM delineates mission start and mission end very black and white. There is a huge transition. And in RimWorld, you don't have that satisfaction of mission success, splash screen, transition back to management mode. And maybe that's rewarding for me in a way that I don't get from RimWorld. Like I feel like I'm always teetering on the edge, and sometimes I start to push back off of teetering on the edge, and then I get pushed back to the edge, and there's never a transition where I've hit a milestone and had a success to reward my brain and tickle the reward pleasure centers, you know? Maybe that's my problem.
So yeah, maybe RimWorld needs whenever the raiders run away, instead of a tiny little message in the top left-hand corner of the screen, it needs a defense successful splash that hops up in the middle of the screen. Maybe
It doesn't fit the style of game though. Like RimWorld just isn't designed to have those little encapsulated nuggets of missions. And maybe you could with the new world map. Maybe you could manage your colony and send a squad to go do a mission, but it's not what RimWorld's about. And I'm not saying that every game needs to cater to my lizard brain. You know, RimWorld is great the way it is. I'm just trying to parse why I don't stay why RimWorld isn't my staple game on stream. Because it's a great game and I don't know why it's not.
So in Alpha 17, they're introducing a quest system where you actually get given objectives to raid camps or visit secret stashes, that kind of thing. And they're not like constant. They only pop up every now and then. But I think it's a really interesting way to add a bit of variety to the gameplay. And I think that, RimWorld's still in development. And there's so much room for expansion. I'm really looking forward to see where they go. I actually dropped a suggestion. Tynan, if you're listening, he's not. But if he was, I dropped a suggestion in their forums for a wheelchair, specifically based on the experience I had with that colonist Elfire.
Yeah.
Because I would love to be able to, you could build a wheelchair and a colonist can use it, but they have to be put in the wheelchair by your doctor. So every morning the doctor gets up and he puts Elfire in the wheelchair and she wheels herself only on paths, can't wheel herself on dirt, wheels herself over to the crafting station and starts to,
maybe you could have tiers of wheelchair. You'd have off-road wheelchairs that she could do on dirt. The basic wheelchair would have to be partial paralysis only so they can push it around with their arms. There's a lot of room there for some stuff. I bet that there might already be a mod for that.
There's always a mod for that.
Yeah.
There's always a mod. I think it's one of those things where I'm so lazy. I would much rather play the basic game than the modded version of the game because I'm lazy and I don't want to search through mods. And it's not even that I'm not willing to curate my own mod list. It's that I'm too lazy to curate my own mod list. Because I'm interested in mods and I'm interested in, interesting mods that add gameplay changes and things. But finding the right ones and actually putting them together,
I harp on this a lot. And maybe not enough because people still ask me all the time. So maybe I haven't harped on it too much, but I'll try and keep it short for the people who are already annoyed with having me rehash this. I philosophically have a hard time modding a game that I'm streaming because I am presenting the audience with an experience and we are sharing that experience. And the more common ground we have, the easier it is to share that experience. So if there's a big universal mod that literally everyone is using, it's easier to convince me to install that one. But if I say, man, I wish this game had this feature, and then everyone says, well, there's a mod for that, you didn't understand me. And it's my fault because I didn't communicate well. I didn't mean I want to fix my game. I just meant to talk about game design in general, I think.
Yeah, actually, I wanna have a little bit of a complain. Can I have a little bit of a complain? I like having a little bit of a complaint occasionally.
Yeah, rock on.
If you're a forum user and you log on to forums to belittle or negatively comment on a developer, not on a system, okay? I want to make it perfectly clear. If you're providing feedback, if you go to a forum, you provide feedback and explain why you're providing the feedback, like, I really don't like this system because I feel like it's unfair and it does this and I think it could be done better. That's fine. If you're that guy who goes onto a forum and says, clearly these guys aren't trying hard enough and clearly this should have been fixed and clearly, they're just milking the money out of their loyal player base and we should really stop respecting them. If you're that guy, nobody likes you. Go outside, get some sun. Seriously. So I've been reading a lot of forums recently because I've been playing a lot of these beta patches and I've seen some really and they're from the thing that annoys me is that they're from people who have bothered to sign up to the forums.
Yeah.
Which means that they're interested in communicating with the developers and trying to help shape the game. And that kind of comment is completely counterproductive because it just annoyed me.
In some sense, it's good that people feel ownership enough to care that deeply. Right? And if you can repeat that mantra while you read those comments as a developer, maybe it helps you sleep at night. Because I think that when you've put a lot of effort into creating something and you get a lot of criticism about it, it's tough. It's hard. And the other thing that I wanted to say was just, if you want something to be fixed, that's not the way to do it. And maybe like you feel so emotional that complaint lets you vent and heal a little bit, and you temporarily feel better, so there is some benefit to complaining. But 20 minutes later, when nothing has changed, and you just made someone else feel worse than you felt before you complained, net gain is negative.
It's not... I think the thing that frustrates me about it is that a developer should be held liable for their game, right? And they should be completely open to criticism about their game. All right. If a player doesn't like a system, even if that player says this system is shit, like that's their entire comment. I'm allowed to swear on MetaGaming, aren't I?
Gently and occasionally.
Yeah, generally, I'm not going to go full Australian on you, don't worry. But like, if that's literally all the comment is, I don't like Doom stacks because Doom stacks are rubbish. I'll change my vernacular. If that's it, right, that is still feedback, and a developer should be able to take that and do something with it. Put it in a pile with all of those other comments and go, wow, there's a lot of those comments. Maybe we should consider doing something.
Yeah.
But when the criticism isn't about a system, it's not about, like, no person, if you are a person, if you're the guy, if you're that guy, if you're any guy, it doesn't matter. Or if you're a girl, it doesn't matter. But if you're the guy that is complaining about a developer's workload or work ethic or monetary system or that kind of thing in very broad strokes on forums, like, you should never do that. Unless you work in the industry, unless you have consulted their business plan, like, there is no way you have any clue about the situation.
You've,
They said they were fixing bugs and they did. Okay.
you've been on some forums recently.
I have. I've spent some time on forums, and I don't like. I understand there's always going to be those people, right? And normally they're the vocal minority shouting in a Twitch chat. But those people shouldn't go on forums. Like, just yell at them, yell it into a microphone. Go outside and yell at the tree out in your backyard, because it'll be more productive.
The question becomes,
Mhm.
how do we combat this? Because there are always going to be new people born, and those new people are always going to grow up and have human emotions. And those human emotions are always going to try to vent themselves. And, you reach a level of maturity and you reach a level of experience where you realize that constructive criticism is both less painful and more effective. And, you reach that level of mature rational discourse. But you spent a lot of years before you learned that. And how do we communicate that effectively to the people that haven't learned it yet? And how do we solve the problem? And my first impulse is ignore it. You're definitely not going to get anywhere arguing with that guy and telling him to change, especially with as impersonal as the internet is. Like, he doesn't care what you think.
No, he doesn't.
And so it's an education thing, and it's an ignoring the uneducated thing, because they'll get there or they won't, but there's not much you can do to change it. And I'm not saying that's easy, right? If you are receiving all of that criticism and you're trying to sort it into piles of valid criticism, let me improve myself, versus this guy's just angry, that sorting process requires you to read and internalize all of it, and that is not easy. That's not a thing that is easy to stay cheerful and upbeat through. But I don't know. I don't want to just complain about something without thinking about how to improve it. And maybe PSAs like this are one of the best things you can do. Like, just think about whether you're gaining what you want by spending your energy the way you're spending it.
I think.
And maybe
calm down.
Maybe that sentence to those people who feel so passionate is a little bit of helping solve that problem.
I've calmed down now. I've had my rant. I think we should all shed our pathetic meat bodies and become sentient AI. Somebody's got to be working on that.
I wonder what psychological issues sentient AI will have. I had never thought of that. When you say right after the discussion we just had, let's shed our meat bodies, it seems like you're trying to solve this problem of humans being emotional wrecks and not knowing how to cope with their emotions, and then emotionally harming other people because it makes them feel better for 10 minutes. Would that be solved by shedding our meat bodies? I guess it depends on the method of shedding. And then, like, how human would we be if we didn't have these flaws?
Can you imagine a, actual robot who was annoyed? Would, smoke come out his ears? That would be interesting.
Well, and I think that I both can and can't imagine it, depending on the robot, right? Sci-fi has trained me to assume robots are emotionless, so of course they don't get annoyed. But why would the robot be any different than a people? Why wouldn't it get frustrated that it is trying to do a thing and it is being impeded at every step? And then, what is it that causes frustration? And why would a robot be immune to that? And would it be effective to be immune to that? Maybe frustration helps motivate you to try something different so that you can accomplish your task.
It's probably incredibly important from a psychological evolution standpoint, right? We've probably developed that emotional response due to evolutionary pressure.
Yeah.
I would imagine. I would love to talk to an evolutionary biologist or an evolutionary anthropologist or something who could explain to me why we feel frustration.
It's likely that it is good for something. That thing may not be relevant in the modern world.
Yeah.
But being frustrated is common enough that it's likely it is good for something, or was.
Probably still is. Most of our evolutionary traits are still useful.
Yeah. I mean,
although
really liking the taste of fat and sugar has phased out of usefulness, sadly.
Well, I mean, it's still useful. I still get great pleasure out of eating my bacon and drinking my Coke.
But it evolved to give you great pleasure and health.
Yeah. But the pleasure part is still working, right?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
That went a direction I did not expect to go today.
Yeah, that's all right. We'll just keep chatting. Hey, so Phoenix Point got figged.
Yeah, it's succeeded recently. I mean, I don't know when, but they are at 117% of their goal, which is not a lot over it.
And they've been doing updates.
Mm-hmm.
I think they actually hit their goal very quickly, and then funding sort of petered off after they hit their goal, which is what you expect from a Kickstarting campaign for something a little bit niche. And because it's not on Kickstarter, it can't, like a Fig project, I don't think at this stage at least is ever going to get as much attention as a Kickstarter project because of the negative connotations with Fig and the breadth of Kickstarter.
Because the human hive mind, yes, we have one. The human hive mind loves to hate the name Tim Schafer.
Yeah. Poor Tim Schafer. I feel sorry for Tim Schafer. He's just an enthusiastic guy who's terrible with money.
And bad enough at social media and PR that the human hive mind has chosen to hate him.
Yeah.
There are some confounding factors there, I'm sure. But we talked a lot about Fig 2 weeks ago, and the update I have is maybe a little bit of an announcement. I am planning on investing in Phoenix Point at the minimum level possible. As a test, I'll tell you all how it goes.
In 3 years.
Yeah. So
actually, you'll have to wait for the game to come out. When is it due? Is it this year? End of this year or end of next year?
I think it's due some point in 2018. Estimated delivery Q4 2018.
Okay. So end of next year.
So I won't have final results until Q4 2021, which is a little while in the future.
Just a little.
But I read all but I was just fascinated as to why Fig is an investing platform and Kickstarter is not after our discussion last time, because I didn't know anything about Fig. So I sat and read through their website. I didn't read any outside opinions. I just read what Fig was presenting. So that's the background I'm coming from. And the way it works is Fig pools up investment money. And they have a bunch of words on there about the SEC and about compliance and whatever. And I don't understand any of that stuff. So I skimmed through that and was like, oh, they're doing legal things too. Great. But there are different classes of investors, and I might not qualify. You have to have a lot of loose money kicking around to qualify as the one kind of investor. You either have to have a really high basic income compared to your assets and liabilities. You either have to have a really high monthly income or a really high amount of money in a savings pool to qualify as this other kind of investor, which I don't. So I might not be allowed to invest when it gets there. But the way it works is Snapshot Games says, we need this much money to build our project. Fig says, we will gather that all up from investors and hand you that lump sum. So you have some amount. Let's call it $1 million because it's an easy number to talk about. So then Fig gives Snapshot Games $1 million once their project funds and it's ready to go, and they've collected from all the investors. Snapshot Games releases their product, and then the investors get a portion of the sales, and the portion has two tiers, and it's higher at first and then peters off, I think, if I'm remembering right, or the reverse of that, possibly. There were two tiers, and at certain breakpoints, it changes. And then once the game has made 3 times the investment amount, so once the game's made $3 million, the investors are done. They take their cash and go home. Or 3 years after the game is funded. 3 years later, they declare the end. Investors take their cash and go home, and the studio gets the rest of the income from sales.
We were talking about this before the podcast started, because I remember after our last podcast, you were asking me a few questions about the investment process.
Yeah.
And I think Fig is an interesting entry-level investment for people who've never considered it before.
Yeah.
Because the difference between a normal... So if you've got money lying around and you're not investing, it's something you should be considering to do. Not necessarily through Fig. I'm not going, hey, if you've got $500, quickly throw it at a Fig campaign.
Your money, interest is powerful. It's exponential. And your money should be doing it.
Your money should be invested. If you have spare money kicking around, it's better to have it tied up in investments. Normally, talk to a financial advisor. I'm not one of those. But as a general rule, it's better to have things invested in safe investments. Fig is like baby's first investment, because the process is very set. There's not a lot of uncertainty other than how many copies of the game will sell. Everything else is provided to you in a sort of easy to understand format, right? You will invest this amount of money at the start, and once you've done that, your hands off. You've got nothing else to worry about. Every time a game copy sells, you will get a little bit of money until 3 years has passed, or until the game has made 3 times its initial project. And you don't have to worry about, do I exit? Do I stay in? Do I sell this investment off? Do I there's no uncertainty.
It's way less complex than going to do stock trading.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is this bizarre, fantastical world of money showing up out of thin air or vanishing back into thin air. And you have to decide when to invest in what and when to pull out. And, you can try and ride out a low to get back to a high. And there's a lot of process that's difficult to understand. And this is just, I have decided that I think your product is nice. Here's some money. Give me some back later. And it's almost like, it's almost like a loan with interest. That they're going to pay you back. But they pay you back contingently on earning money rather than having some liability to you, which is just a lot easier to understand.
Yeah, it's a fairly easy to understand investment. You can get in at a low sort of level, like $500, I think is the minimum amount. And so it's an interesting thing.
Yeah, I'm going to try it out, and I'll keep you updated on what's happening every 6 months when something happens. It's not a quick process, and it's not like a bank account where you can pull your money back out partway through. Like I am spending $500 on a business idea, and if that business generates money, I'll get some back.
Huzzah. The Phoenix Point is looking really good. They've been releasing some updates on their Fig page with concept art and weapon models and things, and a bit of a description about the various factions that will be in the game and some stories and stuff. And the lore seems to be really well fleshed out. I've been reading the lore and some of the stories and stuff that have been included, and looking at some of the clay models and stuff that they've been putting up, and I'm really excited for the setting, even if the game doesn't deliver on the mechanics. I'm really excited just to explore the world, like and be in that world because the lore looks really intriguing.
Um, we've got a question about investing. Will being an investor earn me earlier access? I don't think so. I don't think investing even gets me a copy. I think I have to invest and pledge if I want to
Yeah,
pre-order a copy.
pledging
Investing
is
seems very separate and very just investing. And it may give me a voice. I might get like update emails and be able to give my opinion, and that opinion has the weight of $500 behind it. I don't know how that works, but I don't think I mean, maybe if I'm an investor and I have that voice, I'll have a relationship with the studio and sort of indirectly we can get something going on, but I don't think there's any default early access.
if I'm streaming in Q4 of 2018, which I seriously hope I am, you can bet your bottom dollar that I'm going to be sending Julian Gollop emails all the time. Hey, JG. Hey, my man. Can I have a look at your get? Can I please have JG? Please, can I have? Because I'm so hyped for that game. It's actually actually like unhealthy.
I'm trying to carefully not be hyped because I would like to just say two words. And then I'll probably explain why I said the two words. I'm really bad at stopping. But my two words are Hard West.
I was never super hyped for Hard West. I was interested, but I wasn't super hyped.
Hard West did great setting mechanics, and I couldn't finish the storyline.
I don't think the setting was that great, and it wasn't presented well at all.
Really? I was super interested in the setting. Maybe the storytelling wasn't great and I don't remember now. But I remember the storytelling being my only motivation to play the next mission. Actually playing was drudgery and tedium.
I think so that might be like a cultural divide because Westerns aren't exactly a huge thing in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know of, I could name one person who'd been in a Western, maybe if I was lucky. I'm interested in like the setting is interesting to me, but I don't have any material to draw upon. Right? Like it's
yep. And the setting is interesting, and then their take on doing it sci-fi and mystical was interesting, but their gameplay was just I don't know. I'm going to return to I don't know why XCOM is so good. Because there have been a lot of games that I thought were going to be enough like XCOM that I would enjoy the combat puzzles. And Hard West was one. And then their combat puzzles were not fun. And I don't know why. And so I'm having a hard time. I don't want to overhype myself for Phoenix Point. I think it's going to be great. It is very easy for me to overhype myself, and I am trying to exercise willpower and restrain my hype engine about Phoenix Point because I was let down by Hard West. I was let down by Expeditions Vikings. I was let down every time I've seen a game and said, oh, good. This game is going to give me an XCOM-like experience. I have inevitably been disappointed.
You want to know the big difference, Llama?
Yes.
Do you want to know the big difference? And I'm just going to keep revving your hype engine. I'm going to keep revving your hype engine. The big difference, Julian Gollop. He designed the entire genre stemmed from his design, right?
I hope he recaptures it. I mean, 2012 XCOM captured something from the 1990s XCOM, so it's not impossible.
And so if and here's the other thing, right? Is if Julian Gollop appeared out of nowhere after, like, I think he did a couple of other sort of games that I never really played. I'm trying to think what they're called now. He did a couple of other ones with the studio, but
Chaos Reborn, I think.
yeah, Chaos Reborn, that's it. But if he had appeared out of nowhere after making the original XCOMs and being silent for 20 years and said, yeah, I'm making another game and it's going to be kind of like XCOM and it's called Phoenix Point, I would be exactly like you. I mean, the original XCOM games were brilliant at their time, but now they're barely playable because of busted UIs and like weird, like exploity combat systems. But Julian Gollop not only has the original design under his belt and, you know, that kind of thing, he also has all of the wisdom generated by Firaxis, who have released 2 successful XCOM games in the new millennium.
I hope he does. I don't have the wisdom. As a big XCOM fan, I keep thinking games are going to reproduce that experience for me, and they keep not doing it. So I don't have the wisdom generated by Firaxis, despite having played their game a lot. And I hope that that's because I'm not a designer, and that you are correct. I don't know. I've been hunting for that experience. And I think the closest I got was Valkyria Chronicles.
Yeah.
But that was still more enjoying the characters and the storyline than the game mechanics. The game mechanics were good, and they didn't let me down and make me stop playing because I couldn't be bothered. But they weren't the thing that held my attention, I don't think.
Valkyria Chronicles was very story driven from my memory. Like,
we should, yeah, it was, and it's a great story, and the characters are great, and the gameplay is enjoyable and challenging and has some fun decisions to make.
Yeah.
And it captures something, but I think the story was better than the gameplay.
Yeah.
I should talk about. I just like washed past Expeditions Vikings, and I should go into a little more depth. Did you get a chance? I know you watched some of my coverage. Did you get a chance to play that at all?
I didn't even watch any of your coverage, to be honest.
Oh,
Expeditions Vikings. So I heard about it, and I heard some negative things from some people that I trust who work in the industry. And I think I originally told you before you'd even played the game that I'd heard that it was there were some certain issues with the game.
yeah.
And I never really. So because of that, I got de-hyped enough that I didn't even look at it. I think I was even offered a key, and I was just like,
I made the mistake. I watched one of their videos.
Yeah.
And it sold the combat as more intricate than the combat was. Probably because I didn't watch the whole video and watched it sort of half distracted. But it sold me on a lot of decisions to make in the combat. And and they were on hexes and turn-based, and I was like, oh, it's Hexcom. Great. I'm going to go play that. And it's an RPG and falls badly into some RPG badness. One of which is hold down Alt and walk around the whole map to make sure you didn't miss anything, which is not inspired gameplay. And the combat itself it doesn't feel like I can make smart decisions and win, but otherwise lose. It feels like my team bashes into their team, we all stand still and trade blows until one of us slogs through the victor. And it didn't feel very dynamic. It didn't feel like I was making a lot of meaningful choices. I was mostly choosing not to provoke attacks of opportunity and beat down the guy that I want to move away from to beat down the next guy. And it was missing something important.
Yeah, so I can't really comment on it. I heard some negative things and I never played it. But
Yeah.
it's just
I
was talking to you the other day about tactics games, and in particular tactics games that do melee combat. We were talking about things including the dreaded attack of opportunity and how it's a trope that survived since like long before video games were, anywhere near this complex.
We had that original conversation, and I had it during Expeditions Vikings, and I argued with Twitch chat a lot. And I've come back around a little bit on I don't know how to solve the problem without attacks of opportunity, because real combat isn't turn-based, and turn-based poses some unique challenges. And attacks of opportunity is the standard way of solving those challenges. I still don't think it's the best, but I don't feel like I have a good solution to offer otherwise, so maybe it is the best.
So I'm not
as 100% in my hate as I was.
Good, because me and Llama had this conversation on Discord. I think we did it on text because Llama was so frustrated that he had to talk at the time. But we had this conversation, which basically went, I hate attacks of opportunity. I said, well, they're needed. And I was like, no, they're not. And I'm like, they kind of are. And I was like, okay, so maybe they are, but they shouldn't be, and we need something different. And from there, we ended up having like this really deep conversation about what we thought we could do, as amateur game designers, systems that we could think we could implement that would fulfill the role of the attacks of opportunity system, which is basically there to stop players from either swarming the enemy, like player with first turn gets to swarm the enemy, or to prevent range characters from just disengaging for free every turn. And those two elements need to be fixed if you want to remove attacks of opportunity.
Yeah, it's tough because if in non-turn based combat, you don't get to tag the ranged guy if he wants to disengage, because while you are running over, he is running away. So it's not like in a turn-based game, you run up and you spend all your energy running and you don't get to attack, and then he runs away, and then you have to chase him. If it's real time, you just both run at the same time, and then you decide, you know what, he's too far back, I got to deal with what's in front of me, I'm going to stop. Right, so the fact that it's turn-based adds some natural unrealism. And so trying to stick to realism is never going to solve the problems. But I dislike attacks of opportunity because I feel like they make the game less dynamic. I think XCOM does attacks of opportunity exquisitely. You turn them on, they are called Overwatch. There are tools to counter them, and it's a decision as to whether you activate them or not each turn.
That's true.
Right? You choose to forego your attack to have the benefit of limiting your opponent's mobility by threatening attacks of opportunity. But it's not a melee game. And maybe that doesn't work in a melee turn-based game the same way it works in a ranged one.
It would be interesting to see you could have a sort of how would you, it's difficult to describe. I'm visualizing it in my head. What I'm picturing is the ability to attack on your turn always, because here's the thing, right, is the problem with Overwatch, and I've never liked Overwatch, right? It was my biggest complaint in Long War 1, and in Long War 2, I like that it's a very specialized skill that you don't do a lot. You do it on people who are supposed to be overwatching, rather than your entire team, like in Long War 1.
Yeah.
But I'm visualizing a thing where, because you don't get to attack every turn with the Overwatch system, I feel like it removes it in the same way. If you can get a free attack whenever the enemy do something, if you Overwatch, then why would you ever shoot? And the decision to shoot goes away.
Right.
So I'm imagining a system where you can allocate a certain amount of your combat ability to attack on your turn, and the reserve is used as defense or an attack of opportunity on the opponent's turn, so that on your turn you swing with your attack, and if you have initiative, i.e. the opponent hasn't acted yet, you're going to get a good swing in at him, and then he's going to get to attack back at you. But how much of your combat strength did you spend to attack him, and how much did you leave in reserve? Well, if you left a lot in reserve, then he's going to really struggle to hit you. But if you left nothing in reserve, he could disengage away from you with you barely having a chance to hit him. And that's I'm visualizing sort of a slider
I think
that would let you do that.
There's a lot of design space there. I think I mean, I am not a real melee combatant. I am not an expert in historical combat. It seems like realistic historical combat is a lot of sparring and footwork and trying to create an opening by feinting at your opponent with attacks that were never intended to do damage, while trying not to give your opponent an opening at the same time. And then it's finally decisively finished with one hit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the video game trope of hit points and each attack wearing down hit points doesn't serve that idea well. And that may be part of the problem with attacks of opportunity, is they take away some of your hit points and then you don't have them for your next dance. I don't think a lot of melee turn-based games capture the dance. But I think there's a lot of design space there. And I think attacks of opportunity are the default is something that I hope people arrive at carefully instead of starting from.
Yeah, I think, and
I felt very oppressed by the attacks of opportunity in Expeditions Viking.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's my own fault. Maybe I interpreted the combat wrongly. But I felt very oppressed by the attacks of opportunity. I felt like they were the starting point, and then abilities were added to try and help you deal with them, instead of having the game designed and arriving at attacks of opportunity mechanics to solve problems. I feel like they started with them and then tried to work around them, which is backwards.
Yeah. And the difference between turn-based and real-time is so huge. Like, you even look at a game like For Honor, which is a AAA title. You don't expect AAA titles to have great tactical elements. Normally, they're flashy cinematic things. But if you look at the combat, have you ever seen footage of For Honor, Llama? I don't know.
I think so. Yeah, no, that's the yeah. I'm familiar with For Honor. I haven't played it.
Yeah, it's like,
but I've seen quite a bit of coverage and footage and like captured moments that were spectacular and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that does the sort of positioning and reading of the opponent thing better than most turn-based, better than most other real-time combat games, because your opponents have obvious tells and a specific move set, and if you read those tells, then you can guard or step away or defend, and you're constantly jockeying for positioning and using the environment to your advantage, and that works really well in a real-time game. But finding the solution for the term, I think the day that somebody creates a turn-based melee game with flashy animations that really captures that dance, the tense moments of in and out and feint and thrust and counter thrust and parry, and like really captures that element of the tactics of melee combat, even if it's small scale, like 3v3. That game's going to be a winner, because I think that visceral melee combat, right? That's that, one wrong move, one open guard, one false step, and you get killed. That visceral style of combat where you've got to read your opponent is really engaging from a thematic standpoint, but has never been achieved in a strategy, like a tactics game that I've seen. So,
yeah, but I think it's easier to simulate real-time life in real time than it is in
Yeah.
turn-based. It's just such a unique problem to turn-based melee combat that I would love to see someone solve. Fort Triumph has also come up while we talk about games trying to be XCOM. I shouldn't.
So many.
That sounds so. That sounds so rude. I shouldn't say
same
that.
genre.
I don't think Expedition Viking was trying to be XCOM. I don't think Valkyria Chronicles was trying to be XCOM. I don't think Hard West was trying to be XCOM. I shouldn't say that. But when we talk about games that might scratch my XCOM itch, let's say that Fort Triumph exists. Have you heard of it? I might have told you about it.
So the developers have been hounding me for ages to check it out, and I got
Me
a
too.
really early build that I had to look at a while
too.
back, and I didn't mention it at all
Yeah.
because it was very bare bones. And it's still in development. It's an interesting game. It's a tactics game.
I don't know how much the build I got reflects the final design. And I haven't played it since that very early alpha build. And so I'm going to carefully ignore things like how awful the animations were.
Yep.
Because that can be fixed and probably was fixed. They hadn't implemented the level up and skill system yet, and maybe that fixes a lot of stuff. But level 1 characters walking into combat was just horribly uninteresting. It just didn't. It just didn't.
I think the biggest foible. So here's the thing: a game like that is super accessible to the mass public, right? You have very simple abilities. They're very clearly delineated. This one is for single target damage. This one is for area damage, and this one is defensive. And like maybe you end up with more abilities in the game. I don't know, but
yeah.
The point is that
basic loop has to be good. That first mission against the sectoids has to feel good. You can't rely on, well, when you get advanced abilities, it's better. You can't. Because nobody will get there if the beginning is garbage.
I think the big difference, and this is what I was going to say, right, is that in a lot of games, you start off in a position where you have one ability, maybe two, maybe three, but that's it. When you look at XCOM, and you play like XCOM 2, right? You jump into Gatecrasher. You're on Gatecrasher. You've got 4 rookies. Each of those rookies can shoot, Overwatch, throw a frag grenade, throw a flash grenade. No, I don't think they can throw flash grenades. They can throw. They've got frag grenades. They can hunker down behind cover. They can set up ambushes. Like you can use a concealment system to set up an ambush. There are so many tactical and interesting options. Whereas in most games, like Expedition Viking, I imagine the first fight was literally, I walk up to you, you walk up to me, I swing my axe at you, you swing your axe at me. I swing my axe at you, you swing your axe at me.
It was.
I swing my axe at you, you die.
Yeah, and my archer stays out of range behind my melee, and he shoots whichever guy we're focusing down this turn. It was very prescriptive. And I don't think XCOM should have Gatecrasher be rookies. I think there's just a little too little to do there.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is taking cover and positioning and stuff is dynamic and interesting. It's better than the first fight in Expedition Vikings, but I don't think it's good. I think if that first mission was one of each class, it would be vastly better.
Absolutely. And it's a reason that I often skip Gatecrasher. Like I installed Skip Gatecrasher very early on in my XCOM 2 career because that first mission is just not interesting. And if it's not interesting, if you have to slap your head, there were 2 problems with Gatecrasher, which was it wasn't interesting and it was luck-based.
It wasn't interesting the 7th time.
Yeah.
It wasn't interesting as someone who is very familiar with XCOM. I think it was okay the first time as the tutorial to how shooting and cover and grenades work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And in that moment, you have enough to learn that you're not bored.
Mhm.
But I don't think that Fort Triumph got there. Their core gameplay loop, if you've spent all your special abilities and you're down to like the last grind out and all you can do is move and shoot and move and shoot, XCOM is still interesting.
Yeah.
Right? That core gameplay loop has some magic to it. And I didn't get that magic in Fort Triumph. They have a mechanic where you can knock over the scenery, and the scenery lands on people and kills them. And okay, it was okay.
Newsflash. We interrupt this regularly scheduled broadcast for a live and breaking story. There is an opt-in patch for Stellaris 1.6.1.
Hey, that means we get to play tomorrow.
Apparently it fixes everything. So if you're watching this podcast and you're thinking, I wonder if they patched Stellaris yet. Yeah, they did during the hour we were just talking. So, hey, it's there. Yeah, I don't know. I would like to see, I think that I don't have any coding experience and I'm an awful artist. I struggle to draw stick figures. But I would love to have some money to throw at a game studio so that I could make a game.
Mhm.
Because and like everybody probably thinks that, right? That's probably
I have tons of impossible to implement ideas that I think would be really fun to play if someone managed to make them.
But I really do think that given time and experience, I could pump out something that was interesting. I just don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna have to have a think. Maybe I should learn how to code and be one of those one-man game studios and release a game like Stardew Valley and make millions and retire in the Bahamas with.
I try really hard every time I get started thinking that way to remind myself that I don't know what I'm talking about. It's very easy when you play a lot of games to think, I know what I like when I play a game. I obviously know what I would like when I'm making a game. Right? It's a very easy, it seems logical. But I think be cautious. I think there's a reason that games come out that aren't good, even though smart people worked on them for a long time.
Yeah, I'm not belittling the work of game designers. All right, game developers, I love you. You do amazing work. Even the guys that turn out shite games, you do a really good job. Okay, keep at it. You're furthering the art of game making, and we love your faces. And you give me a reason for having a job. So thank you. But what I'm saying is that I think a lot of studios fall into the trap of using existing tropes and existing mechanics and existing formats and things because they know they work and because they're probably easy to implement. Like if you've worked on a turn-based game, chances are you know how to implement a passable combat system for one of those types of games. But I don't think I wish I saw more studios trying to iterate and innovate, right? Like that's always been my issue with the current state of the gaming market, is that there are plenty of really great games. Like two perfect examples, okay? Battle Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
That was an interesting, innovative take on turn-based combat, and it was
Yeah.
a really great game. And if that was developed by Firaxis, it would be, in my opinion, massively critically acclaimed, and I would probably be playing it a lot.
Why didn't I hate the attacks of opportunity in that game? Now I want to revisit that discussion and analyze why Expeditions Viking Combat did not hold my attention at all, but Battle Brothers did.
Maybe
they're
that's
really
a
similar.
conversation.
If you run away in Battle Brothers, you get clobbered.
Yeah. Maybe that's a conversation for next time. Because we are running out of time here, I think. I've got to get some sleep.
I'd need to think about it. Like, I mean, we could think about it and talk it through live, and that would be content. But maybe it'd be better if I thought about it and brought an opinion to discuss. But I'm super interested because their attacks of opportunity are exactly the same. Everybody has them by default just for holding a melee weapon.
This is true.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to think about that.
There
I
you
guess
go.
it's probably not time to explore that now. Did we have anything else we desperately wanted to make sure to cover today?
Prey came out. I've heard it's really good. If you're into FPSs, you should check it out. I don't own a copy. Llama doesn't own a copy. We haven't looked at it at all. It's
I have Prey is for me. Prey After Horizons specifically has taught me that commercials really work. I am not interested in Call of Duty. I'm not interested in Modern Warfare. I'm not interested in Players Unknown Battlegrounds. I'm a little bit interested in that one for a different reason. I was super interested in Horizon, and I was super interested in Prey because they assaulted my eyes with commercials on constant repeat and loop. And it just worked. I don't even like that genre of games. And I wanted to check those ones out because I saw so many commercials.
Yeah. I've heard really good things about Prey. So from people I trust. So I'm willing to give it a thumbs up without even playing it because I'm pretty confident that it's good.
Yeah.
That's a risky stance to take on a game release, isn't it? Other than that, I'm done. Llama, I don't have anything else to talk about. Do you have anything else you wanted to add to the conversation?
No, I think that's it. Thank you for joining me. I hope that people were entertained. And we will do this again in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, it might be 2 weeks. I don't know.
We plan to do this again in 2 weeks. Often our plans run afoul of reality.
I'm not playing a farm sim, Shylock. Well, all right. So we should sign off.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me join you again, Llama, for MetaGaming. I appreciate it.
This isn't even you joining me. This is our co-hosted show. We should have some guests join us occasionally.
Yeah, we did that once, didn't we?
Yeah, we had tacos on.
We did. We had tacos.
Yeah, that is a thing that requires planning and preparation, which this show is known for. But maybe someday.
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. If you're watching us live on Twitch, we do this live on Twitch, by the way. We both have Twitch channels, right? That's where we're from. We're not. If you're watching this on YouTube, how did you find it?
Right. If you're watching this on YouTube, you probably already know we have Twitch channels.
If you don't, we're both on Twitch. I'm twitch.tv/Lolish. He's twitch.tv/LlamaChomp. We do all sorts of things every day of the week. We're always here. So come say hi sometime if you're not watching this live. If you are watching this live, hey. We don't talk to you much during the cast, but
we will right after we put up the splash screen for the YouTube cut, which is happening quite soon. I've been LlamaChomp.
I've been Lolash.
You've been metagamed.